Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to part 2 of the Vehicle Expense Tracker. In this training, we're going to be adding on to the amazing application we built last week, including the ability to save maintenance and expenses, add in fuel costs, set unlimited reminders, create meter entries, and have a complete dashboard that we built into this. So we have a lot to cover. So let's get started. Alright, thanks so much for joining me on this part 2 of the Vehicle Expense Tracker. In last week's episode, we gave the ability to create this. We designed it from scratch. If you did not see it, I will include the links down below. However, you can pick up right where we left off from last week. In last week's, what we did is we had the ability to select and display vehicles, and we created this amazing 6-part tab system so we can easily view all of our auto information simply by clicking on the tabs and also displaying the vehicle when we select it from the list on the right. We've got tons to cover, so we're going to get right started. Before we do, I want to make sure that you are subscribed. We do create these videos each and every week for you, every Tuesday as a matter of fact, and I want to make sure you are the first one to get these alerts when we create them. So the best thing to do is subscribe and of course share. That helps keep these videos for free, and the training, I always include a free download. You can check the links down below. It's always free, but if you'd like to pick up 100 of these applications, I've got a sale right now for just $37 to give you 100 of my best application. That is an incredible deal. People are picking it up, so you might want to get that too. That saves you from having to download it and gets you all. Of course, I included a link and a library in that application so you can link to every single one of the training videos that's associated with those applications. It is a great feature, so I hope if you do like creating these applications and you want to turn your passion into profits, I have just the system for you. In fact, it is the Excel for Freelancers mentorship program. I'm going to take you on a 12-step process right through all the way from the defining your applications, determining who, what, and how you build these, all the way up to the design where we can design your own application, include project scope and a flow chart and everything. And then of course the development, we're going to go cover the complete development process, and then most importantly the deployment, so I can show you how to turn that application, put it on your website, create amazing applications in a full system of reoccurring income from yours. So I can't wait. If you want it, that's interests you, you want to turn your passion into profits, and we go from anything from concept all the way to the cash. I'll include the links down below. Of course, my Excel mentor will get you there. I hope you'll join us there. All right, let's get started on this project. We've got so much to cover. Last week in a full 90-minute episode, we covered a lot, but we've got even more to cover. What do we need to do? Well, the first thing I want to do is we have the ability to add a vehicle, and that's great. We created that last week. All we need to do is enter a car here, car 8, and then just enter some plate numbers and make and model and notes, and then we can save it. That's great, but how do we, when we make a change, how do we save that change? Right now there's no way to save that change, so how do we do that? For example, nothing. So when we change here, I want to save that change, so when we select back, it's automatically saved. How do we do that? Well, that we can do that through data mapping. In fact, this should not be a data validation, right? We don't need that data validation. It's just a straight name. So I'm going to remove that data validation here. We really don't need that here because we have the ability to select vehicles here. Now, if you have many vehicles, 100, what you would want to do is create some type of a vehicle data validation up here, maybe somewhere up here or down here, or maybe even right here, so that it's above. Then you select a vehicle and then the vehicle loads. So that's another way of doing it. If you have like a couple hundred vehicles, all you need to do is create a drop down list maybe right here and then select the vehicle, and then it would load up here. That would be good, and then you might not need this list anymore. So there's a few different ways to do that. But what I want to do right now is I want to focus on the ability to update the information in our database right just by entering. So how do we do that? Well, we can do that with data mapping. So just a refresher, what I want to do is I want to save everything in this table. So car 8, when we created it, we created a plate number, but we created and we didn't create a picture, so I'll update that code. So we don't need that code. So basically what we need to do is when we have a new, we need to make sure that J13 is cleared out, right? So let's take an example. So when we go back into this, now J13 has a value in it, right? It should not, right? When we add a vehicle, right, that should be cleared out. Notice it's not, so all we need to do is update into our developer sheet, Visual Basic. When we go into the vehicle macros, we have add new, we have vehicle max add. All we need to do is add J13 here. J13. We want to make sure that's cleared out, because when we add a new one, we want to make sure that there is no picture. So when user, because there's no need to have a picture there until we actually add one. So until we're setting one. So keep that in mind. So now when we click here, we click add a vehicle, we can make sure J13 is cleared out. All right, I'm glad we got that done. I'll save it. So how do we get changes? How do we get changes when we add a car, we make a change? How do we save those changes? Well, like I said, we can use data mapping. It's quite easy, and I'm going to walk you through that. The best way to start out data mapping is to create a copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it over, just the values. It's really important. Maybe about 006. Let's just start with 06 right here. I'm going to paste the values. So I have name and a car, but I don't need the value. I don't need the value. So let's just remove that. I don't need the data here. I only need the name. And then what I need here, don't need any of that. So we just need that. But I also need, there's one other field. I need J13. Remember, that's our picture. So that's in 13 and J. So that's one I want to make sure of. So let's, because this is going to have to be changed too. So I believe that would be here under T. So let's put it under, let's put the name under S, picture, and then of course T is where we're going to put the column. So what do I want to do? I want to know what column this is going to be stored in. I want to know is name is going to be in column 1, plate is in column 2, but how do we know that? Let's just write it down. This is going to help us, column. And then just so we know, it's easier to do this. And then I'm going to drag this over here. So I'm going to get a column for each one. I'm going to center that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of this. So I'm going to use my Snagit editor, and I'm going to create a picture. And okay, so now I've got a picture of it. Now I'm going to copy that picture. I'm going to bring it back into my application, and I'm going to paste it right down here. Just temporarily, just is going to help us understand. So what do I need to do? I need to put name of the car in column 1. Okay, what is next? The plate is in column 2. You see how I'm doing that? It's really important. What is the make? The make of the model, of course, is 3, and then the model is 4. The type is 5. The seats are 6. Notes, of course, are 7, and then the picture would be 8. The picture's all the way down here. Okay, so what I've done is I've associated every single field with a column in the database, and that's really important. I'm going to left justify all of these just so we can, just so they're together, and we can see exactly what we. So we've associated this. But now what I need to do is I need to know. So when I make a change, to this name, what I need to do is I need to know, I know the row. How do I know where the car is stored? Because it's an existing car. And if we remember, our vehicle database row is 4. So anytime we need to make a change to a sheet, we need 3 things. 3 very critical things. We need to know what sheet we're making the change on. We need to know the row, and we need to know the column. So how do we get all 3 of those components? Okay, so we know the sheet. We know what's going on here. We know the row because it's here. So what is our missing number? Missing number is the column. How do we get the column? So I know if I make a change here, I need to get the column. And now I have placed the column right here. It's column 1. So now I need to do is find out what's the difference between this and this. Okay, so let's take a look. This is column 6. Now what column is this right here? This is column equals column 16. So that means if I make a change to column 6 here in the current row 6, column 6, how do I get the column? How do I get the column? It's exactly 10 columns away. 10 columns away is column 1. I'm looking for that 1. So if I do the same thing with area, if I make a change here, if I make a change here, change here, change here, I need to get the individual column. All I need to do is look in the same row, and I'm going to show you. Actually, you see how we did that? How do we avoid that? Look how we made a selection. We really don't want to do that. What we need to do is add a little caveat. Let me do that right now just to help us. So when you have things that don't really belong, that's on selection change. Notice when we select a vehicle, right, then the vehicle loads. But what I want to do is I only want that to happen if the user selects one single cell. So if target count large greater than 1, then exit sub. Okay, that's going to handle it. Now it's not going to run if we select more than that. How does that work? Okay, let's minimize that. Now, right, when I select multiple, nothing happens. When I select a row, nothing happens. Only when I select a single cell. Okay, so we've situated that. If you run into that problem, you don't want things to happen only when you select one instance. So that happens. Keep in mind though, if you have a selection change, like let's say I'm selecting notes, this is considered, let's say we've got 4 rows by 3 columns. So this is considered 12 cells. So if I make a change, this is going to be a change on 12 different cells. So if I have a selection change that's running, it's not going to work because this is 12. Keep that in mind. So what I mean is, let's say I want to make a change to F12, right? And if I go into the developers back in here, let's reduce this and so you can see it properly. So that means that if I have a merged cell, this is going to exit out. But I have no action on a merged cell, so it's fine now. But keep that in mind. Merged cells. So if you need something to happen on a merged cell and your merged cell is 4 cells wide, you might want to make this 5. Okay, keep that in mind. The total number of cells in a merged cell, it does affect that. Okay, so back to what we're in. So what I want to do is when I make a change here, I want that change to end up. We know all the dimensions. Now we know the column. We can remove this. We don't need that anymore. So we know the column because it's exactly 10 columns away, right? We know this is column 16. We know this is column 6. So how do we look? We look 10 columns over. So how do we write that down? Well, first of all, we're basing it on a change, right? Basing it on a change anywhere from F6 to H15. So let's program in that change right now. And that's on change event on the vehicle expense tracker. Not selection change, but actual change. So that would be right here under change. And if not, what are the cells that we're focused on? Notice that I typed that out really quick. That's called auto hotkey. I use that. It's a free software to automate my typing. Okay, so we're focused on F6 through H15. So let's do that right now. Actually, we need one more. We've got to include J13 right here. Actually, J13, I think it's J13 is one we have. So we do need to focus all the way from, we'll include column J all the way J down to, let's say, row 15. So it would be F6 through J15. So let's type that in now. F6 through J15. Okay, so we have that, but now there's something else we need to think about. What is that? When we load a vehicle, when I click on a specific vehicle, when I click on here, well, that's a change too. Let me fix this. Nothing. Then, let's just write this then, and then and if. Okay, we have the end if. That's also automated through auto hotkey. Okay, so if I make a change here, right, that's a change. Notice how there's changes, right? But I need to differentiate between the change when the car loads, because that's a change, right? The cells are getting changed here and here and here, or to the kind of change where the user actually makes a change like this, right? That's also a change. So how do I differentiate between those two changes? Well, I can use what's called a load, a car load. Notice when the car load, this goes to true. I think we programmed that in. Notice how this goes to true. We programmed that in. So when the car is loading, this is going to go to true and then back to false. See that real quick? Where does that come from? It comes from our loading macro in our vehicle here. So when we load it, let's go, I think it was, oh, that's the first macro here. So B7 sets vehicle to load as true, and then it sets it back to false right here. So we know that if B7 is true, then we don't want, those are not the kind of changes. So all we need to do is make sure that B7 is false. So let's add that in. So and range B7 dot value must be false equals false, right? We can't do it on load. We cannot do that on load. We need to make sure that B7 is false, right? Because when it's true, that kind of changes when it's loading. Okay, so we've covered that. What else do we need to cover? Well, there's more. What else? Remember, this is I only want to focus on existing, not new cars. Existing cars, right? I want to update because new cars, we don't have a database row yet. It hasn't been saved to the database, so we don't have a rows. So we also need to make sure that new vehicle B5 is false. So we have to write that in too. So let's make sure B5 is false and range B5 dot value equals false. Okay, so let's write that in. Let's write it in on a comment. On change of vehicle details, but not on vehicle load and not on new vehicle. Okay, so we know that. So we can understand what's going on with our code. Then what do I want to do? Then let's mention let's call it the vehicle row. Remember, we need three components: vehicle, row, as long, and the vehicle column as long. We know the sheet. Okay, so we need to get the vehicle row and the vehicle column. What is the vehicle row? The vehicle row is located in B4 equals range B4 dot value. That's the vehicle row in the database. Vehicle row. Okay, so we've got that. Let's pull that up right now just so we can confirm it and look it up. Vehicle row is located in B4. That's 4. Remember, that's the row that we're associated right here in the vehicle list. In this case, it would be car 1, which is on 4. Okay, so we need that. Now we know the sheet is vehicle list. Now we need the column. How are we going to get that column? We know it. You know what the column is because it's exactly 10 columns over. So let's write that in. Vehicle column is equal to what? Equal to the cells. Now what is it, the cells? The target row. It's the same row, target row, right? We haven't changed the row, but we have to change the column. It is the target column, the existing column, plus what? Not the plus 10. Plus 10 dot value. That is our database column. Database column. So now we have the sheet. Now we have the row. Now we have the column. Now we can write it up. So let's make sure. We just want to make sure that there's one other thing. Here's what's going to happen. Well, let me show you the error. So let's write in a sheet 2 is our vehicle list dot cells. We're using cells because both the column and the row are dynamic and variables. What is the row? The vehicle row. What is the column? Vehicle column dot value. What does it equal? It equals the target dot value. Okay, let's see if it works, and let's save our work and continue on. Okay, so let me add some information here to this. This one has enough information. Let's call this Camry and see if it worked. That would be on car 2, and of course that's under the make. So we look under that, car 2 here, and Camry. Make is Camry. Perfect. It worked good. But here's an issue, right? Watch, I'm going to create a bug. What happens if user accidentally changes this? It's going to create a bug. Why is this a bug? You guys run into this bug a lot. You say, I got a bug. I don't understand what happened. What's the problem here? Vehicle row. All we need to do is vehicle row is 5. Vehicle column is 0. Uh-oh. Why is the vehicle column 0? Because look, when we look at the row that we changed this one right here, right? If we look 10 columns over, there's no value here. I need a number, right? And it's good. We don't want a value there because there's nothing. So how do we avoid that? We just ensure, although generally what you'll do is you'll lock these off cells and you'll only keep the ones open that have values. But just in case, it's always good. So all we need to do, right? If we see vehicle column is 0, all we need to do is write if vehicle column does not equal 0, then do that, right? That's all we need to do. Now resets the bug. And now, then, let's write in then, vehicle, then, now it's going to work just fine. Okay, so now let's reset it and go back in and just make a change to this in case we do it. Now there's no issue because it's 0. Now only when we change this. So now we can change this to Honda and it works just fine. And notes and type, let's just call it sedan. And 4. Okay, or 7 seats. Yeah, why not? Okay, so car 2 here, Honda sedan 7. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now let's make sure the picture got updated. I want to make sure that we picture. So we're going to add a picture to this. And let's just go and I'll find a picture here. I think I've got it under last week's vehicle expense tracker. Okay, I've got some pictures here. Let's open that up. Okay, so now we've added a picture here on an existing. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not saving it. I'm going to go car 2, back to car 3. Back to car 2, and it didn't save. Why not? Let's see. What did it save it on? J13, right? It's not there. So did we make the update on J13? All right, let's check the column, and we see if we know it's in 13, right? Let's take a look at this. Make sure we have the right place. No, we've got it in the wrong. We've got it on 12. All we need to do is drop this down. One more. Let's try it again. Add the picture and put it on here. Okay, now go back and back. All right, there we go. So we just had the wrong row. Now we've got the data mapping all right. So if you have any issues, just kind of check to make sure your rows and your columns are all set up and you'll be fine. Okay, so now any change we make is going to save to the database. Okay, I'm glad we covered that. That was a really important part. And let's continue on. We also want to have the ability to save expenses. If I put in a car number and a date and I want to save that expense. So how do we do that? Well, let's take a look in this. So all we need to do is take this information and create a macro. So we got an expense type here. Let's put in some expense types and add so we can put those in. Let's put them in starting, let's create I did create a named range earlier, so let me take a look at this, although there's no data in here. So I've got it here between A19 and A25, so let's do that. Why don't we just use those? So let's create, let's call it repairs. Let's call this cleaning, tolls, maybe we have oil and tires. Okay, so we've created various different expenses for this, and now we notice that here we have expense type. Okay, so we've got all the data in here, repairs, and then we can choose a vendor. Let's just say Fred's Garage. Now I want to save this data. Test repairs. All right, so I want to be able to save this data. I want to be able to save it here in the expense here, right here. So I want to put the car number, the date. So I've got some information here already. So how do we get it in? Well, we just need to find the first row and then map it. And I've already actually mapped it. I've done the mapping for us. We understand F19 is the vehicle, H19 is the date, J is the amount. Again, F19, H19, J. So we understand data mapping. So when we understand the data mapping, it's very easy to save. Let's write some code to do just that. Into the Visual Basic we go, and I've got some expense and fuel macros. We can just write it inside this module. I've got the module already set up. So why don't we write it now? We can call this sub expense save, because that's all we're doing is saving expense. And we need to know the expense row as long, and of course the expense column as long. So we need to know those things. We're going to loop through the expense columns. And of course, with sheet 1, that's the sheet we're focused on, we do want to make sure that there's we do need at least a value, and we need to make sure there's at least an expense amount. So that's kind of important. So let's make sure that we have at least a car, which is F19, and at least a value, which is J19. Let's make sure those are filled in before we let the user save. So if dot range F19 equals empty, or dot range H19 dot value equals empty, then what do we want to do? Just message box, please fill in the required fields, exit sub. Okay, so but if we want to let the user know what's required, here's a great way to let them know right away on hand. It's an easy way. Just use conditional formatting. So I'm going to hold down the control and look at both of those fields, and I'm going to add conditional formatting. I'm creating a new rule, and I'm going to use format cells that only contain, and then blanks, only blanks, and give it a color. You can create, as many, and then we'll just use yellow. That's a little bit too bright, so go to more colors, and maybe this yellow here. Okay, so now when it's blank, it's automatically going to be yellow. Okay, so we see how that works. So now that lets the user know which fields are required very easily. Okay, continuing on with our code. What else do we need? Now that we know that they have filled in the proper values, all we need to do is first we need to know the row. What is the row? Let's give it a new row. Expense row. Remember, this is everyone's new. So equals what sheet? We're looking on the expenses list, which is sheet 3. Sheet 3 dot range. Let's just use A9999 and then XL out. Dot row, okay, +1. That's a first available row. First available expense row. Now that we have that, all we need to do is, again, the columns, right? We know the sheet, we know the row, now we need to get the columns. Well, the columns are dynamic. They're going to loop through all the columns, and I believe there's 6 total columns, starting with the first going to last. Let's double check that. Going into the expense, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total columns. So we're going to loop through columns 1 through 6. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in sheet 1, look at F19 and put the value, let's say, in this row. I'm going to look in H19, I'm going to put the value in the row. Same thing, that's all we're going to do. It's very easy when we do data mapping. So we start our loop. For expense column equals 1, 2, 6. Always close our loop. Next expense column. Now we can write our code. What is our code? Well, it's pretty much easy. It's going to be sheet 3 dot cells. What is the row? The row, of course, is the expense row. What is the column? Expense column. Dot value. So what does it equal? it equals whatever is, we need the range, right? It equals whatever's in, let's walk through this again, even though we go over data mapping so often, equals what's in every sheet 1, F9, what's in sheet 1. Remember, this is row 1. So let's do that. Let's write that out just so we know. It's going to be equals dot range. And what is that range? Well, that range is located in sheet 3. Sheet 3, that's where the range is located. It's located in column 1, cells, expense column, dot value. Okay, that is the range. That's all we need to do to add values, and that right there. So what else do we need to do? Well, let's let the user know. Now remember, we don't have an add new button on here, so that means we need to clear it out and we need to let the user know. So let's clear out all the fields right now that we've added all the information in. So let's add that in. As far as to clear the rows, what fields are we clearing? Well, we're basically going to clear all these F19 all the way here. So F19, and they're right here. So let's just write it right here. We can see that code. So let me write that in right now. Reduce that so I can see what cells to clear. So we're clearing in dot range F19, H19, J19, F21, H21, and F23. 23. Let's take a look at that. Okay, F19, H19, J19, F21, H21, and F23. And then we're going to clear those out. So clear, not clear, but clear contents. Clear contents. Clear would clear all the formatting. We don't want to do that. Clear contents. Although it's pretty self-explanatory. Now that let's let the user know that it's been saved. Message box expense has, we can use a fade out message too, but this one's okay for now. Saved. Okay, and then we're good. Then that's it. That's all we need to do. We end with and end sub. So let's save our code, copy this, and then we'll assign it to that button, expense save, and we'll see what kind of bugs we can find. There's always bugs, but that's okay. Bugs are fun because you learn how to fix things. You see, I have bugs all the time. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to select both of those, and then we're going to click assign macro, and then I'm going to paste in this macro and click OK. All right, and always good to fill in all the fields, especially when you're saving. Now I'm going to save the expense. Okay, I can't clear this out. Why? Because we've got two merged cells here. Notice that H through J, and we have F through J28. So we need to make sure that when we're placing values or reading values, we can use just the first cell. But when we're clearing out, we need to encompass the entire range. So let's do that. H through J and F23 through F28. So let's just put that in the code and make sure that that's done. So again, H21 through J21, and then F23 all the way through J28. Okay, now we can run the code. Now that'll work. Let's save the expense. There we go. Expenses has been saved. We're going to look in our expense list and go all the way down here and make sure that all that information got here. Good, it got entered properly. Let's just try one more to make sure. We'll do car 2, and we'll just do 500, and let's just call this an expense type cleaning, and just call it cleaning is expensive. Okay, and we'll save that expense, and then please fill in the required fields. Okay, actually we need date also. 1, 2. Actually, let's add date, and we need really J19 and H19. So I think all of those are important. So let's save those expenses, and we need to add J19, and so we'll put H19, and I also want to put or J19, right? We need both, right? We need all three because dates are important, especially for the okay, so now we've got it all. So now let's just add conditional formatting onto these. All we need to do again is just do into the conditional formatting. All we need to do is go into the conditional formatting and then manage the rules, and then we'll add one more because I'd like to have comma. And then what are we going to add? We're adding, of course, this one too. Now we apply it. Now they're all three. Okay, so we can save the expenses. Our expenses just got saved down here, even though we didn't put Fred's Garage. So we've got everything we need. Now what about fuel? Well, pretty much the same thing with fuel. I want to select a car. I want to select a date and amount. Again, all three of these, I want to make these first three required. So conditional formatting, new rule, and then format only cells that contain blanks And then we're going to format. Now, if you want to find the color that you just used, right, we can go into fill effects and actually use the same color. So which is that yellow one down here. So we can do that. That'll locate even though it's the same color, it's not a fade, but it's an easy way to access the same color you used. Now, if this is blank, it's work. All right, so basically all we need to do is do the same exact thing, but just we're going to change different ranges. Everything else is going to be almost the same, except we have 7 fields. Now, why don't we just copy that and pretty much make this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and then update the fields. So this one's going to be called sub fuel save. And I'm going to paste in this. Of course, the sheet's different, so we need to update the fuels located on sheet 4. So wherever we see sheet 3, we need to make sure that it's saved to sheet 4. And then again here, this is 4. Okay, so and then we'll change this to fuel has been saved. And I think this is going to be 7 columns, right? 7. So let's take a look at that. Expense row 4. We're going to change expense to fuel. So I'm going to find the word EXP and I'm going to change it to fuel only in the selected text. And then I'm going to replace all. Okay, let's take a look at that. Fuel row, fuel column, that looks good. And then please all the required fields. Fuel row, fuel column, that's good. Fuel row 1. Again, we'll change these. This is not going to be correct now. We need to update those. All right, so what do we need to clear out? Let's look at that. I want to clear out these fields here. So let's take a look and scroll up here. In this case, it's going to be F32. So we're going to change it to F32. We're going to change it to H32 and the amount. So just change these to 32. And then this to 32. They're relatively the same. And then the next row, of course, is going to be 34, F34. Now there's no merge cells here, so F34, and then of course H and also J34. There's a notes, that's a merge field, so we got to keep an eye on that. And then the merge field in this case is going to be F36 through J41. F36 through J41. 36 through 41. Okay, so now we've quickly created a macro just by copying and pasting and updating it. Okay, you can see that there. So now fuel has been saved and sheet 4. So let's take a look at the named range. Let's just double check it because we're going 1 through 7 this time. And I've already got, so our fuel, remember, is F, H, 32, and then 34, and then 36. So let's just take a look at that and make sure 32, 32, 32, 34, 34, and then 36. So everything looks good as far as our data mapping. It's just an easier way. I don't want to go over it too many times because you get the idea and you can see how quickly we can create the macros. Again, this time fuel save. I'll copy that macro and assign that to the button on sheet 1 here. So this is part of a group, so I don't want to assign it to this. So I'm going to hold down the control and click that little icon. Now I've selected those 2 shapes. Right click, and then you can use N or macro, and then paste, Control V, fuel save. Okay, again, let's make sure we have the notification that's going to tell us that the fuel is required. We need to put in the 3 fields. I got to check these F, H, and J32. I don't think I did that here. F32, J32, H32, and J32. Okay, so those are our required fields in this case. So let's update that. All right, now that we have all those, we want to make sure, let's run that macro, make sure I get that. That's correct. So let's put in the date here, and let's put in amount. And the unit, let's say we have 36 liters. Actually, the unit is liters. And the quantity would be 36, and the station, you know, Fred's station. Fred owns a lot of property around there. Okay, Fred is nice. And then notes, let's right justify that so it's consistent with the rest of the application. Save our work so far. Okay, and now I'm going to click Save Fuel. Let's check our fuel log. Make sure, let's go down here. 39 is going to be where we need to put it on. So that's where it's going to be. And let's save the fuel. And the fuel has been saved. Go back into our fuel. Car 2, 140 liters. Okay, that looks good. 44.54, was that the right? No, that's what was that the amount that I had? I can't remember. I hope so. Let's just test it again to make sure. This time we're going to put car 7 on 15, and let's put the amount as 36. I can remember that. Save the fuel. Fuel's been saved. Go back into the fuel log. 36 is correct car. Okay, we're looking good on that. Now we've done fuel, so now everything. So now let's get into the reminders. Why do I want reminders? If I have to change oil every few months, or if I have to change my tires every year, I want to get those reminders. I want to know when I need to do things, and I want to know that. So all we need to do is, one, save the reminders to the reminder table. It's pretty much just how we have done it with the fuel and the expenses. But in this case, what I want to do is I also want to load in all of the reminders that are active and that have the results. So how do we do that? So that means basically we're going to save a few information on these reminders and then have them load into this table so we can see all the reminders. But again, we can copy and paste and start out from there. It's going to be a little bit easier. So I'm just going to click this fuel save right here. And then actually we can just change it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a separate module for this because I've got a few other things in reminders. So I'm going to change this to reminders and then change the cells accordingly. Reminders, save. So again, we're going to do, let's just change fuel to REM. I'm going to find fuel and then I'm going to replace it with REM and then replace all instances in our selected text. Okay, so now we have reminder row is long, reminder column is long, good. And now let's change the required fields. What's required for a reminder? We need the vehicle, we probably need the name of the reminder, and we need the next date, and we need the recurring status. They're probably all important, really. So let's put them all in F45, H, J. So let's make sure I think they're all kind of critical. So F45, right? We need that. We need also H45. That's important because we need to have a name. Otherwise, we're not going to know what it is. We're also going to need a J32. J32, we might need next date. A next day is possible, so we know when to. That's really important. So we know when to make it. So J, again, 45. What else is there? We also need to have more than that. So we need to have, we need to make sure that recurring, how often do you want this? F47. So F47, let's change that. And again, also we need to have statuses probably. We need to make sure it's active. So let's go ahead and change that. Also copy and paste F47. So really they're all important, I think. So again, control, holding down the control, assigning conditional formatting, new rule. You know how we're going to do it by now. Format only cells that contain blank values. And then we're going to go into format, give it that same yellow color, which we can locate here in the formatting. It's going to be all down here. And that's going to give us, make sure that we have assigned everything that we need. Okay, so now we've got conditional formatting for all the cells. They're all going to turn yellow until we fill them in. We give it a vehicle, we give it an oil check, and then let's say the next date would be 3/1. We need to check that, and then let's just say every 90 days, and status is going to be active. So I need to set, I already set it, I set that already, I guess. Data validation, again, let's just take a look at that. Data validation here, actually it's going to be just two, active and inactive. I guess I had set that, I forgot. Okay, so that's all it is, just active and active, because I only want, if I don't want to check something, or maybe I want to make it deactivated, I don't want a reminder for it if it's not active. Okay, so we have all the information that we need to save it, and it's going to go, of course, right in here in our reminders database. And again, in this case, we're going to be looping through last date. This one's going to be controlled by VBA, so we don't need that too much. So I'm really going to loop through, let's say 5 columns. So really we'll want to change it to 5. So let's go ahead and of course F45, H45, and then I've already mapped the data just to make things go a little bit quicker because my videos are long enough already. Let's fix this issue. If it's red, we know there's an issue, and we need a space between here. Okay, and just one. All right, so that's fine. We know that all those are now required. Let's expand this so you can see it. And what else do we need to do? Let's continue on with the macro. So again, we're going to go through 5 columns. This time it's not sheet 5. What? Not sheet 4, it is sheet 5, I believe. Let's take a look at that. Reminders are sheet 5, so let's update our code to make sure that it's sheet 5 that we're moving through, checking for the first available row on sheet 5. Sheet 5 is where we're going to place the data, and we're going to also look for the range in sheet 5, column 1. And we're going to loop columns 1 through 5. And so that's it. Now our next, we also probably need to add the row in there, so I'm going to add that right in here. Let's just put in that a different, what is it? Again, in this case, it's going to be sheet 5.range G. I'm going to have the last date. The last date is going to be automatic. So the last date I'll have VBA take care of. So we don't need F, but G we do need. So G and in fact, it's not going to be reminder row. Okay, dot value equals, all we need to do is we can put in a formula, or we can put in, let's put in a formula equals, but on we could just put in reminder row like that. That would be fine. But if you're going to delete rows, then let's use a formula equals row. So that way it's always going to change. Even if you delete rows, it's going to be right. But if you're not deleting rows, then you could just put in a reminder. Okay, so we're putting in a formula. That way it's going to have a dynamic row. Now all we need to do is clear the contents. It's going to place all of the data right here. Not last date. That VBA is going to handle that, but it's going to put in the row right here. All right, so we have that information here. So let's now go ahead and clear out. We know the data is F45, H45. We know that we just have to check. Here, there's no, of course, no merged cells, so we can clear them out. We don't need to do that. So we can clear them out. Let's just take a look at that. And again, let's go back in here. They're already here. The cells are already, we already know which ones to clear out, but we're going to add a few more to that. So let's do that. Clear, make sure that's, again, F45, H45, J45, F47, 47, and J47. Okay, I think we've got a few more though. Let's just take a look at those. And I also want to clear out the table, right? We want to make sure that the table is clear. Every time we slow, I want to, I'll actually clear out the table on load, but we'll make it. So really only those 5. And then what I want to do is once I save it, I want to reload this table. So I'll clear the table out and reload the data in another macro. Okay, we'll call that reminders load. So we've cleared out all the contents of it. I think 40, this should be 47, not 41. That's it. So all those are good to go now. So those 5 cells will be cleared out, and that's good. What I will do is I want to add another macro here, and we're going to call it reminder load. Reminders load. Okay. So we can write that in just a moment. So sub reminder load. Okay, because that's important too. I want to load all the reminders. What reminders do I want to load? I want to know which ones are active, and I want to know which ones have a next date that's less than the current day. I want to know the less than the current day, less than equals today, right? I want to know all the reminders, not the ones that are past, but ones that are either less than or equal today. So we only know the current reminders. In this case, we have the next day, so there wouldn't be any to load. Let's update these existing. So let's just 121, and 122. Okay, so what do we want to do is we want to have the frequency, and the last day we can clear those out. So let's say, so basically what I want to do is every 90 days I want to remind me, so that if the next day is 20, we know that the next date after that's going to be 3 months. So basically I want to load that data in here, and then I want to understand and check for reminders. So let's first finish this macro by assigning it to the button here. So I'm going to right click, assign the macro, and we're going to say called reminders save. So let's now save our work here, and I'm going to double check that code to make sure we're looking. Save reminders. Okay, let's run that code and just see if we run into any issues. Reminder has been saved. Okay, let's go into the reminders and see car 3 oil check active. That looks pretty good. That's exactly what we want. 7 last date is empty. Okay, great. Let's load in those macros. So we want one more. I want to load in those. So what I want to do is I want to take all of these and I want to bring them through a filter. I want to know which ones are active, and I want to know which ones are before or equal to the current date. So I'm going to use this criteria, active and before or equal to the today. So that's going to help us. And then I want the results. I want to place them right here. Then I'm going to take those results and I'm going to bring them right into this table right here. All right, so let's write some code to do just that. So again, we're going to call this reminders load, and we're going to primarily focus with sheet 1. So sheet 1. And now again, we're going to, let's say we want to know the last row, dimension the last row as long. We need to know the last row of the reminder, so that's not on sheet 1, but we can focus on that. So what are we focused on here? Let's just run an advanced filter automatically and bring that data in. We've already have our criteria set. So the last row is going to be equal to sheet 5, that's our reminders, dot range, A, then 999 dot end, XL, that's going to be our last row, dot row. Last row. Okay, so now that we have our last row, we can run our advanced filters. But I also want to make sure we clear the contents of that, and I want to clear, again, I want to clear this table too. So let's clear that out. E50 through J59 should be cleared out. So dot range E50 through J59, clear the contents. Clear contents. So we've done that. And also, sometimes I want to clear the contents. Usually VBA will do that, but I like to do it. Sheet 5, L4 through R. Let's clear those out. Let's clear out any previous results. Dot sheet 5 dot range L4 through R, and then of course all the way down R, and then let's just say 999. I'm going to clear those. Dot clear contents. Clear results. Remember, VBA tends to do this, but I just like to do it just in case. So now we're ready to run our advanced filter. So sheet 5 dot range. What is the range? Remember, we want to include the headers A3. A3 is going to be our header all the way over to G and what? And the last row dot advanced filter. We're going to copy to new location. And what's the criteria? The criteria is sheet 5 dot range, and it is going to be these I3 through J4. I3 through J4 dot not that's it. Copy to, what are we going to copy to? Range colon equals, I forgot this, criteria range colon equals, okay, make sure we add that in, okay, sheet 5 copy to range. What are we copying it to? Again, sheet 5 dot range, and what's the range? Again, L3 through R3. L3 through R3. That's the range. And then of course we want unique colon equals true or false. I guess it doesn't matter in this case. Okay, so we have all that. There we go. Now we've got, let's just take a look at that sheet 5, A3 through G in the last row, advanced filter, copying it to another location, criteria range, sheet 4, I3 through J4, that looks correct. And we also want copy to range equals sheet 5, L3 through R3. Okay, so we have that. Now all we need to do is bring in the results. Very, very simple. So how do we do that? Once we've run our advanced filter, dot range, again, we're focused on sheet 1 again, E50, that is where our results will go of our reminders, through what is going to be J59. All the columns match up, so it's really easy. Value equals what? Equals sheet 5 dot range. And what's the range? Our results are located in L3 through, and we only have the maximum rows, so we have 10 maximum rows. So let's just go through Q or R. We don't need the row, so we can just do Q in this case. Q 12. Okay, so that's all dot value. So that's going to copy over reminders. All right, that's perfect. Okay, so that's good, and I don't think we need anything else in this macro. We're going to run it. It automatically runs reminder load. I also, you know what, I want to run this? I also want to run this on tab. As soon as we click in the tabs, I want to run it too. So let's go into the tab macro and scroll down to reminders. That's the one we did last week. I'm going to add it right in here. I'm going to put it right there. So that way, every time we click the tab, it's going to also load. Let's check for any bugs on that. Click on the reminders here. And then we need to clear contents. Okay. And that looks good. All right. So now everything loaded in. And although we didn't include the headers, we don't need that, obviously. So what we don't want to do is just make sure that we actually, this has to be 2. Okay. Let's update the code. Our advanced filter should be 2. L3 to R2. We don't need that. All right. There we go. Now it's going to be right. Now let's try it. Run that again. That looks good there, and let's take a look. That looks good there. Okay, let's just format this. Everything looks really nice. Okay, we can center that, and then let's take a look, and then we'll center this. This is on the left, justify. Okay, so now we have our reminders in, but now what I want to do is I want to check for reminders, and then I also want to update that. So let's finish off our reminders, and then we're going to move into the meter, and then we're going to finish off with just some nice little graphs. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to check for any reminders that are before the current date, right? Before the current date, and I need to know. If they are, I need to put a little pop-up, and then if it says it's been completed, then I'm going to schedule the next date for 90 days from this. So the next one's going to be 90 days. So how do we do that? We'll just write a little bit of a macro. It's a really small macro. Let's go into our VBA and write that macro now. I'll expand this a little bit. And so we'll call this sub check for reminders. And then we're going to primarily focus on sheet 5 in this one. So we need a few rows. Dimension, let's move this up a little bit here. Dimension the last row as long. Also, I need the results row as long, and also the last result row, because I'm going to do another advanced filter very similar to this, last result row as long. Okay, so with, don't need two A's there. Okay, so with sheet 5, what we can do, again, we need the last row in this case with sheet 5. So let's get the last row just like we did here. So it's going to be no different, except we don't need sheet 5. So let's copy this. In fact, we can copy everything here. We did pretty much. So everything right here, we just can get rid of that. And I'm going to copy that down here. And now I'm just going to get rid of the sheet 5 references because we're using with sheet 5 in this case, so it's not necessary. And again, so we're going to run through our advanced filter. I also want to know what the active ones are, and I also want to know everything in the past, right? So that's before the current date. So now that we have our advanced filter, we're going to run through the loop. But first I want to double check to see if there are any results. So last result row is equal to, in this case, we're going to use L.range L, and then we'll just go 999, and then end XLF dot end XLF dot row. Okay, let's get us our last result row. What is that? Just so we're on the same page, we're looking at that. What is the last result row? It's going to be this one. So I want to know the last result row. In this case, it's 6. So I'm going to loop all the way from 4 to 6. Check for reminders. And this is where this row is going to play into the factor. So we need that. Okay, so now that we have the last result row, what else do we need to do? I'm going to run a little check. If the last, that's actually result row is less than 3, then go to no results. Okay, so that's going to go all the way to the bottom, and we'll just put down here no results. In fact, let's do a little message, but let's do exit sub. We'll exit out of that, no results, and then we'll put the colon, and then down below let's let the user know message box there are no current reminders. That way we know at least the code's been running. So okay, so everything else is going to be up in here, and everything is, it's going to end here assuming that there are reminders. Okay, so assuming that there are current reminders, what do we want to do with them? I want to run a loop for the results row equals, again starting at 3 all the way to the last result row, and close our loop. Next results row. Okay, so now we've got the loop. So what do I want to do inside this loop? I want to run a check. If message box you have scheduled, or let's put a scheduled reminder for, what is reminder, colon, and what is that reminder? And then we'll put in quotes. And what is that? I want to put the reminder. What is that reminder? I want to put this, whatever's an M. I want to tell the user you have an oil change. So let's put that in there. M and dot range. M and what row? Well, it's going to be the results row, and the results row dot value. So then what else? So we know it's M, and then what I want to put in and space for. And what is the date? So the date in this case would be what's located. What is the date of that schedule? Let's drop this down here. The date, of course, is located in N. So let's write that down. Dot range N and the results row. Okay, but I don't want just the date. It's gonna may not show me the format. Let me format that date just so we know. Format. I want to make sure the date is in the format that I want. In this case, let's put it in as mm/dd/yyyy. You can use any format you want. Close that. And then what do I want to do? Then I want, and we got to put an and here. Okay, and what else? And the format. So now we have the format. Now we've got the, what else do we want to do? And let's put a new line, VBCR. And put a question in. Let the user know, has this been completed? Okay, let's go to the next line so we can see. Has this been completed? Question mark. Okay, now we can say, comma, VB, yes, no. Give the user the option. Okay, now close it, and then we can put a title in there. Vehicle reminder. Actually, we need a car number in there too. All right, let's add a car number here. So let's add that. And dot range, the car number is located in L, and the result row. Okay, good. Now we got the car number in there, and then of course we got to do the and again on. Let's just do on and then the date. And okay, so that's going to cover it. So for the car on whatever date, then we give the user the option here down here. Has this been completed by yes or no vehicle reminder? Okay, equals VB yes. Then what do we want to do? Then I want to do something. I want to put the next date and switch I want to put the last date in there as the next date, and I want to update the next date. But I want to do it, I want to use this row because I want to update the original data. So that row is important. So then what we're going to do is we're going to update. I want to update the last date. The first thing I want to do is the last date. Going to put that current date in there. Okay, so let's just put the current date. Dot range F, right? F, we're focused on F. And what is the row? The row, of course, is located in R, and there's also dot range R, right? That's where our row is, R, and the results row dot value. So that's our row. This is our row right here. Dot range, so there's our column. So what do we want to put there? Well, I want to put there the date equals the date. Let's just put the current date in there. Current date. Now what do we need to do? Now I need to update the next date for basically whatever the current date is plus whatever the frequency is. So we can do that with this line of code here. Dot range C. Now we're focused on C, which is the next date because we're going to update C again. Also, and using the same row, of course, the same row. So we can just copy that and paste that right in here, and don't forget to put the and sign in here. Okay, so now we have the next date. What are we updating it with? We're updating it with whatever is the current date plus whatever's in D, column D. So equals whatever's in column D, just copy and paste that plus the current date, date. Okay, so set the next date. That's it. That's all we really need to do. That sets our reminders. Okay, so let's take a look at that and let's run through the code there and see if we got any bugs. And let's say, okay, we'll save our work. And let's just run through that. And let's run through that. And then invalid dot row. Okay, obviously we need to update the last row. Last row equals, forgot that. Okay, typing too quick. And then results row, we need that. That should be results, not result. These variables, I always use the wrong one. So bear with me here while I work through these. Okay, you have a reminder scheduled oil change for car 1 on 120. Has this been completed? Yes. Now you see that last date got in there. Has this been completed? Yes. No. And then yes. Okay, good. So that's exactly what we did. Notice that we have the last date on here. And now also the next date's completed. So now when we go back into our reminders and we click, now let's assign the macro to this, check for reminders. Right click, assign macros. Again, reminders. Check for reminders here. Now it should just, you have a scheduled reminder. Okay, good. We have, okay, very good. We just got to update these. I got to update the criteria. Let's take a look at that. Criteria should be I2 through J3. Let's make that adjustment there real quick. I2 through J3 in this macro, and of course I2 and J3 in this macro. So there we go. Now we can get it correct. Now let's take a look at it and run it. We just run it once. Let's run it again. Go into there, and then what we'll do is we'll check for reminders here. Click on car 1, that works. Okay, just one, and then I'm going to load it. Now we have no reminders. Good, we've all been checked. Let's just change one of those dates, double check it. We have them all. Let's change 2 of them to, let's just say 2-1, which is in the past, and 2-1, and we can get rid of those. Okay, so let's update that date and make sure we get one. I want to load the 2 reminders in. So let's load them. That loads them in. The next date, notice the next date, check for reminders. We have a check. Would you like to, this has been completed. Let's say no on one and yes on the other. And I guess we should load these again, right? Shouldn't we load these again? Let's run that one more time. So what I'm going to do is we have the check for reminders, but let's run the reminders load after we do this. So I think that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so now let's do that one more time. Check for reminders. Let's just say no on this. There we go. That's what I want, the updated list. So now we have a list of all updated reminders. Okay, great. Continue. Our reminders are working good. Let's focus on this save meeting, the meter track, and this is going to be really easy. All we're going to do is just copy some code that we've already created. In fact, I'm just going to copy this fuel save, and I'm going to go right down here. And I'm just going to update this to meter again. So then let's just go down here, and then let's just change fuel to meter. So all we need to do is just highlight the code, Control F, look for fuel, change it, replace it to the words meter, METR. That's going to help us. And replace all. Okay, replace 10 replacements in the selected text. Perfect. Okay, so now we have that done. Let's just take a look. All right, so what we'll do is we just need to change this last one, meter. Okay, so we have meter long, meter column with sheet 1. Let's check the required fields for the meter. Let's just call it again. I'll use these 3. In this case, we'll do F. We don't probably need a type, so we'll do F and then 65, holding down the control, making sure these go into the conditional formatting. Again, the manager rules, what we'll do is we'll new apply, and then what we'll do is format the cells that contain blanks, and then format, and then we'll give it the yellow color. That way we're consistent all the way through. Okay, very good. So now we have our application. Now we have our meter, and click OK, and then OK. So now we have our blank. So let's update the code for this one, and we're going to include the blanks. In this case, it's going to be F63. We're going to J63, and of course F65. Those are our required fields. So let's update those. F again 63. This would be J, of course, 63. And then the last one, we'll make sure it's F65. Okay, so those are our required fields for the meter checks. We want to make sure that the meter, and now of course we're focused, the meter is going to be sheet 6. So all we need to do is update our code to sheet 6 here. And then we have 4 different fields, like 5 including the notes. So let's map those. Again, it's going to change it to 5, right? Because we have 5. Changing this to 6 and changing this to 6. So now we have our meter columns. We want to clear the contents. Which contents do we want to clear? I'm going to clear a bit 5, so let's update that. F, of course, 63, H63, and J63. 63, J63, and then we have one more field below that, and of course that's going to be F65. And then we have the notes, which is a larger field, so we're going to make sure we include the merge cell fields, 65, and then the merge cell, we can clear these out. And then the merge, of course, in this case, is going to be F67 through J72. So let's write that in, F67 through J72. All right, so we've got that. Now let's just say meter has been saved. That looks pretty good. Let's save our work. Double check sheet 6, right? We're on sheet 6 and sheet 6. Let's check our mapping to make sure that it's accurate if I've added it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 fields, F63, H63, J63, F65, and F67. Okay, that looks good. We've got all of our cells. And now let's assign this. So we're going to go back into the sheet, and then we're going to assign it to the one we just created, holding down the control. Right click, assign the macro, and we're going to assign it to fuel, to meter save here. Now let's put in some information here. Let's try it without the information. That looks good. It's not required. Let's just call it kilometers, and then the date 120, and then the reading 101, and then test notes. Save the meter reading, and the meter has been saved. Let's go into the meter reading. Kilometers, car 3, that looks perfect. All right, so now we have all of our meter readings. Lastly, the last thing on there, we're going to put in our vehicle dashboard, right? I want to select the vehicle, put in some dates. Let's just put in some dates here, and then to 6/1. What I want to do is I want to know what the results, I want to know the expenses, and I want to know the fuel costs for this in a graphical format. Okay, so what do I want to track? I want to know all the expenses during the duration. I also want to know all the fuel expenses. So how do I get that? Well, if you remember, we have a list here. We have a list of expenses. So let's copy that list. And then let's go back into the meter. And what I want to do is I want to go in here and somewhere in probably O, I want to paste that list in here. In fact, I'm just going to paste the links. I think it's better in case we change it. All right, and then I'm going to call it repair expenses. Or let's call it repairs and expenses. It's kind of both. So what I want to do is I want to use this little table, this hidden table. I want to track all of the expenses for the period based on this date, and for this specific car. Now I've created some named ranges. Let's just go over that real quick for our expenses. So if we look in our expense amount and tab over, you see I've got a named range called expense amount for our entire amount. I've also got an expense date, so we know the date of the expense, and I have an expense vehicle. And we have an expense type. So we've got named ranges for all those. That's going to help us determine in the formula what the exact expenses are for that car, for that date, and for that type. So let's use that, and that's going to help us inside our code. So let's write a formula to do that. And we're going to use a sum if formula. So let's write it in now. Let's write sum ifs. Give me multiple conditions. So sum ifs. And what is the sum range? Of course, that's going to be the expense amount. So we know what the expense amount is, and let's write it up here so you can see it better. So the expense amount, what's the criteria? The first criteria, we're going to focus on the expense date. So let's do the expense date is going to have to be greater than or equal. So comma, what's the criteria in the quotations? Greater than or equals to, and what is that? It can be this one right here, 876. That is going to be the expense greater than that, or what? Or and I should say not or, but and less than or equal. So expense date, again, expense date. In this case, it's going to be less than. So quotation less than or equal to, again, in this case, the to date. So and the to date. So we have a few more. Okay, so that's it. What else is criteria? Well, it's got to be for our specific vehicle, right? So the expense vehicle, I need to know that. The expense vehicle must be what? What is the criteria for that? It's going to have to be this vehicle right here. Okay, but we want to make sure that we make these absolute. The date has to be absolute, both of these dates, and the car has to be absolute. That's not going to change when I drag it down. Okay, so we know the expense vehicle. One more. What is it? The expense cost. This one's not going to be expense. Again, type, I should say, should be whatever is in this column right here. Expense type is going to be this. That one we're not going to make absolute. We could make the column absolute, but we certainly cannot make the row absolute because we're going to drag that down. Okay, so those are all of the conditions. So let's write that down now. So that's it. So that's our formula right there. So let's enter that, and it's 170. So we drag that down here, and we get all. We have cleaning, we have tools. We don't have this is tolls like toll road and cleaning. We don't have any expenses for that. We can add them in. Let's just add that in. So we have a nice, put something in like tolls. And I guess we had tolls here, and my data was different. So tolls. Okay, so we have that, and we have cleaning. Let's just put in, what else don't we have? We need some more data in here. Let's put in that cleaning. We have cleaning. Car, probably not for car one, I guess. So let's put in cleaning for car one. Let's see if that makes sure that we have the data. Okay, now we have cleaning for car one. We don't have tolls. We don't have any tolls for car one. Let's put that in just so we have even data. So let's put in car one. I want tolls for that too. Okay, so now we've got data for everything. So basically what I want to do is I want to just create a basic simple little pie chart based on this data. So all I'm going to do is select the data and select the, and I'm just going to go insert here, and then a pie chart, just something basic, maybe something like this. Now that's good, but not quite really what I want. I want to change the style of it. So I'm going to go into layout, and I'm going to go into the design here, and I'm going to probably select something like this design. It's a little bit closer to what I want. And then what I want to put a dynamic chart table in there, equals, and I'm just going to have it equals to whatever we called this, repairs. So that's nice. That's what I want. And then I don't want to format, so let's go into the shape fill, no fill on this one, and I also want no borders on this one. We'll drop this down as we work with this. The shape outline, I want no outline. That's a little bit closer to what I want, so let's move this over and bring it up a little bit bigger, and that's nice. Okay, so now we can make it a little bit smaller here, bring it over to the side because I want to add one more in there. So let's just update it here and make it look a little bit better here because it's kind of ugly. So let's give it a shadow, a little bit of a shadow on here, make it look a little bit better, and maybe some soft, a little bit of a bevel here. So kind of go, there we go. Now it's kind of nice. And so now we have the repairs and expenses here. We can bring this down a little bit here. Go over here. So now we have our expenses. Now what I also want to know the fuel costs on per month basis. Fuel costs. So how do we write that? So let's write that in right here. Fuel costs. And it's going to be on a per month, January. So we'll write the first month and then we'll just drag it down all the way to December. Okay, so now we have all the months. So now how do we write this code? So what I want to know is I want to know all the fuel expenses, and I have named ranges. So let's look in the named ranges, name manager, and we see we have a fuel amount and a fuel date and a fuel vehicle. So the fuel, again, amount, fuel date, and the fuel vehicle. So that's going to help us determine what is our fuel expenses on a per month basis. So how do we do that? Again, we're going to use another sum if. So let's write it up here. It's a little more visible. Equals sum ifs. Again, what is the sum range? Again, this is going to be fuel cost. So fuel amount. And then what's the first criteria? Well, we can use the auto. Let's say this is called fuel vehicle is going to be equal to what? Equal to whatever we've selected here. So that's car 1 in this case. Make that absolute using F4. Picture of me there. Okay, so what else do we need? Criteria range. We need more. We want to know if it's in the month of January, right? So how do we know that? This is not going to be, this is going to be based on just January. So we can do fuel date, right? Because it's going to be based on the date. And what is the criteria? It's got to be greater than the 1st of January of the current year. Let's put the current year. And in this case, let's put in greater than or equal to and what? And the date. It's going to be a date. Well, what is the year? Well, let's just do the year of the current year of today. And so we'll get the current year. That's always helpful. So that's the year. But what about the month? What month is going to be the month one? Because we're focused on January. All right, we need a month number. But how do we get a month number? Well, why don't we use a helper column to get that? That's going to be really. Let's put the 1 in right here. So I'm going to use this one right here. I'm going to add a 1 in here in the next. So I'm going to put the 1 and then drag that all the way down. So that's going to be the month, and the day is going to be 1. Okay, so that covers our greater than. Now, what else do we want? We have more. We have additional. I need it less than the end of the month. So again, let's do that. Less than or equal to, and what is this? This is going to be end of month. EO month. We can use EO month. And in this case, we're going to use the date. The date of what? Again, the year of the current year. Year of today. Okay, that. What about the month? Again, the month is going to be the same here. We're going to put in a 1 right here on that. And then I want also the day of that. 1 is fine. And then what else? I want the number of months before or after. In this case, it's going to be 0. That covers our end of month. And of course, we need to put in the fuel date here as well. Got to add that in. Okay. All right. We're done with our formula. And now let's put in the month's number so that it works. I'm going to put in 1 and then 2. Okay. Then we'll just continue on with that all the way down to 12. That's going to get us our month numbers. Now we can bring this down. Now we have our amounts. That's going to work perfect. We'll put that into, of course, a currency format. All right, I like that. So now all we need to do is just highlight these here and then create a little bit of a line graph. So we're going to insert, in this case, a line graph. We'll just use this one here. Okay, good. That's what we got. We got the basics, but of course we don't want to like it like that. I'm going to format this. We're going to use, let's try a design. Let's try a layout of a chart title. Let's try this type of layout here. Let's call it above the chart. Again, the chart title is going to be equals. In this case, we're going to call it fuel expenses here. So we'll just click fuel cost. And no background on that, so we can get rid of that. The shape fill, no outline. Same thing here, no fill on this here. And that looks good. And we don't need the grid lines here. We can get rid of that. And that's kind of ugly. Okay, I like that. That looks pretty good. Let's just now bring it over and shape it accordingly. So we're going to bring it up so that it fits in with our total information here. And good. I like that. Position it right. We don't need this series here, so we can get rid of that. Fuel cost. There we go. That gives us a nice graph. All right, let's take a look at that. Before I let you go, I'm going to, this is a long training. I know we've got car 1, car 2, car 3. We have our repairs and expenses. We have our fuel purchases. We have our reminders. We have our meter tracking, and we have our graph, our repair expenses and fuel costs. All right, very good. Let's go ahead and change the cars. All right, looks like the graphs are changing based on the car. That's exactly what I want. A little bit That looks good. Just bring it down here. Okay, so we have it on a per car basis. That's what we want. Both are changing when we select a different car. All right, great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you joining me on this. If you like these videos, please, if you get a chance, pick up the 100 workbooks for just $37. It's an amazing deal, and hundreds of people are loving the 100 workbooks, including the 100 workbook library, where you can just locate your favorite workbook and the training all in one worksheet. All right, thanks so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again.